Hello, Katharine. It is such a pleasure to have you. As I told you, I found some of your work, your speeches on X, on YouTube, on Instagram, and I was immediately struck by your common sense, your philosophies, and as someone who truly, truly cares about children as an educator. So it's such a pleasure to meet you. And what a coincidence that you happen to be in New York City and we could get together. So
it's perfect.
Thank you and welcome. So, Katharine, you founded the Michaela Community School in 2014, which we'll dive into. But you have a basic philosophy that I find really simple, but in this day and age, quite extraordinary.
Yes.
So I just want to start with, you grew up with immigrant parents who had very high expectations of you, valued discipline, intellectual rigor. And I'm curious how that shaped your view of what education should look like.
Well, it was a given that obviously school was everything. I remember my father, he's a great traveler. He took us around the world. And so I was born in New Zealand because they were living there for a year at the time, but I grew up mainly in Canada. But then we spent a year in Nigeria when I was 4 and a year in France when I was 10. And then we went to England, supposedly for a year when I was 15, but then I ended up staying on and I never left. Within that, we went and traveled the world. We went to Morocco, we went to Fiji, we went to Singapore. My dad was this real traveler, but he'd never do it inside of school time. It was always outside of school. And it was always during school holidays. And you don't get that many school holidays. I mean, obviously, you have the summer.
Right.
The fact is, he was always planning to the day. Okay, well, we can only go then and we have to come back then. He was all about reading books. He was all about school is what's going to allow you to make something of your life.
Yeah. So in 2010, you gave a speech at the Conservative Party conference that effectively ended your job at the school you were at. And I'm wondering what made you decide to speak out this way, knowing the risks?
Well, I didn't think I was going to be, it's not just that I found myself out of a job, but it was more that the state public education system was never going to allow me to teach in the public sector ever again. The reason why I ended up setting up my own school was because it was made clear to me, forget about it. You spoke at the Conservative Party conference, you're out, I have to say, I knew I was being naughty. I knew I shouldn't say these things, right? But I thought I'd be able to go and tell everybody and then go home and that would be the end. I think I was just very naive about the internet.
Right.
Like at that time. And also, things were not the way they are now. So there was no Instagram, there was no X, there was no, Snapchat, all that stuff didn't exist. There was Facebook. But the immediacy with which people communicate now, it wasn't the same then. So I thought to myself, I'll give my speech and I'll leave. It hadn't really occurred to me that if it's being recorded, it could be replayed. Right? That just hadn't occurred to me. So the thing is, that year, David Cameron was our prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
And that year at the Conservative Party conference, my speech was watched more than the prime minister's speech.
Wow.
So I just thought, I'll give a speech, I'll go home.
Yeah.
That's what I'd always done.
Right.
All the various speeches I've done in my life, because I'm just a teacher at the end of the day. I give a speech somewhere and then I go home.
Yeah. So what did you feel the gap was between mainstream state schools and what you believed was possible?
Well, if you see my school now, you see what's possible. Although I have to say, then I didn't know that this was possible.
Sure,
I didn't.
Right.
I knew it could be better. I had no idea just how much children can learn.
Right.
I had no idea just how polite they can be and how kind they can be and how decent they can be. And I didn't have any idea because I'd never seen it before. I worked in different schools in the inner city. All of my colleagues now and forever since the beginning of my career, we've all worked in various different schools. Nobody ever sees behavior like the behavior we've got at Michaela. Nobody ever sees. I've got guests who come. So we have 1,000 guests every year to the school.
Wow.
Who come from all over the world. We get loads of Americans. In fact, one American teacher had real impact on my life because she came to the school and she actually had just left teaching. And she burst into tears and she said, I didn't know. I didn't know that this could happen in a school. I've left a profession I loved and I didn't know. And then she got really annoyed with me and she said, you need to tell people about this.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I can. And so, as I was saying to you earlier, I'm starting up a podcast of my own in a couple of weeks, actually, it's starting, called Strictly Education. The idea is to try, and it was inspired by her, because she said to me, you've got to do something. You've got to find a way, because at the moment you're restricted to just the 1,000 guests that come, right?
Sure.
As opposed to obviously on the internet, you can talk to millions of people, And I'm trying to spread the word. I'm trying to spread the word to parents and to teachers, because this isn't just about schools. It's also about how we parent our kids.
Right.
And look, 50 years ago, the things that I'm saying, no one would have thought were abnormal. They were just normal. Ask your grandmother and your grandfather. They'll all just agree with me.
Yeah.
Like the biggest part of my fan base, they're all over 60. You know?
Absolutely.
They don't really understand.
Like what's happened in the interim.
They don't understand because they listen to me. They think what you're saying is just normal, right?
Totally.
Whereas you speak to under 30-year-olds, they think what I'm saying is outrageous.
Absolutely. So I want to just really dive into Michaela. So first of all, why the name Michaela?
Well, my friend and colleague, Michaela, she was from St. Lucia. And, my parents from the Caribbean. My mom is Jamaican. My father is Indo-Guyanese. So we had a very small C conservative household. Like most Caribbean households, they are small C conservative. Now, a lot of people will listen to that and think, well, how can they be small C conservative? You're a Black family. You're meant to be on the left. Look, small C conservative values, once upon a time, used to span the right to the left. People had different opinions about how the economy should run. They might have different opinions about the numbers for immigration and so on. But when it came to the way you behave in a social manner, small C conservative values were just normal for everyone, right? So my parents are very much on the political left, but they're small C conservatives.
Mm.
So was Michaela. She was a small C conservative. She was from St. Lucia, so of course she was. She and I worked together for some years in a school in South London, and she taught Spanish. And sadly, she died of cancer in 2011.
Mm.
And that was, it was a really sad thing. And I wish Michaela could have seen the school because, the school happened after she had passed.
What a tribute.
Yeah. I mean, she was, she used to say to me, Katharine, where is the rigor? Is what she used to say.
Yeah.
The discipline, she just couldn't understand how the younger staff would put up with misbehavior, with rudeness.
Yep.
And she wouldn't put up with any of it.
Yeah. What specifically did you see as broken in order to begin? Was it the curriculum, discipline, expectations, all of the above, something else? What was it?
All of the above. But look, the main thing that you will see as a brand new teacher is the terrible behavior. And you don't understand why no. You do think you understand. You think the reason the kids are misbehaving is because they're poor. That's what everybody tells you.
Mm.
Poor kids have to behave like this because they don't come from wealth. That's what everyone says. And then I went traveling and I'd go to visit schools in, Brazil and India and China. And I lived 6 weeks in South Africa working in a small village in a school. And I thought to myself, these kids have nothing, like nothing. Like they're, the kids here are rich in comparison, but they're not misbehaving like that. They're not rude like that. In fact, they're all desperate to have a great education. So this has nothing to do with poverty. My traveling made me realize that this was a load of nonsense that they're telling us. So I then realized that it really is about the values that the children have and that the families have.
Yeah.
And that while you have all these poor countries, so I went to Jamaica and I visited schools there. I went to visit a school in Jamaica, in Kingston, where the gangs run everything, right? Yeah. My parents, we went to visit some family the night before. And I was telling them where I was going the next day to this school. And my parents' friends were begging my father to stop me from going because they were saying she might not get out alive.
Yeah.
And my father was saying, I'm really not sure you should go, but he knows he can't stop me doing things I want to do. So I said, look, I'll take a taxi. I'll get out of the taxi. I'll go in. I'll come back out and I'll go into a taxi, which is what I did. The principal, she was so excited to see me. She kept shaking my hand. She couldn't believe it. And it was really interesting because I went around the school and there was a similar sort of noise level to the kind of thing that you would see in a South London school. It wasn't that different. In that I could feel like I could see kids being sent out of lessons and so on. So there was some of that. Then I spoke to the special needs coordinator. And normally, your special needs coordinator has the worst possible stories of terrible behavior, et cetera, et cetera. All the teachers were there. And they were saying, it's so terrible here. where we are in Kingston. It's just it's so difficult for us teaching these kids their backgrounds. Because a lot of them, most of them, 80% of them did not know their fathers. Like there was serious family breakdown.
Yep.
I mean, it was, we're talking dirt poor. This is Jamaica, Kingston, gangland territory, right? I said, oh, well, tell me a story then. Tell me a story about what the kids do. Just tell me the kinds of things that they do. Because I'm used to, they throw chairs, they march out of lessons, they tell you to F off, they get into fights in the middle of the lessons. I'm used to that kind of thing. And I'm thinking, well, what's happened here? They must be bringing in weapons. What's going on? And she said, well, once, I tell you, I told this child to sit down. And he did not sit down.
Oh my God.
And I couldn't believe it. I just,
Come again?
I could not believe
it. That's shocking.
It was just so like, the thing is that we're all lying to ourselves in the West. We're just lying to ourselves. We expect so little. And I actually think it has to do with racism, to be honest. We look at these brown and black kids and we say that they can't behave,
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous. They can behave. We just need to make them behave,
How?
So this is, and I would say the case for all your, viewers who are mums and dads. It's the same for them because this isn't just about the classroom. It's the same with parenting. You need to mean what you say and say what you mean. That's the number one rule in teaching. You can't say you're going to give a detention for this behavior and then not give them the detention. But you do need to be clear about what is allowed and what isn't allowed. So at Michaela, we do a whole 7 days of boot camp, which is Michaela boot camp. They arrive in year 7. So that's your equivalent of grade 6. They arrive at 10, 11 years old and they start with us and we do a whole week of, okay, this is wrong. This is right. This is wrong. This is right. Over and over again. And they learn very quickly because if you give them detentions, first 2 days, there are no detentions. And we say, that would have been a detention. That would have been a demerit. And we're warning them. We're showing them.
Yep.
You teach them how to behave and then you praise and punish them. And when they get it right, you say, well done. You might give them a gold star. You might give them we give them merits, whatever. At home, you can have a similar thing. You can even have a little chart on the wall where you give them the stars. And then when they get it wrong, you punish them.
How do you punish them?
Well, we give them a demerit in the first instance, and the second demerit would be a detention. At home, you get them to sit on the naughty step if it's a toddler. Obviously, if they're a bit older, right, you're not going out with your friends or whatever. Now, it depends. For a tiny thing, you're not going to stop them from going out with their friends. But you might say, okay, if that happens another time, then da-da-da. Right. And you're just very, very clear. Children learn through ritual formation. So you know how it's really hard to go to the gym? But if you do it every day at 6 a.m., because you just get up and go, and it's always the same, and you have a personal trainer who you're going to meet, and you've already paid him, so you have to turn up, and your friend is also going to turn up, so you need to show up, well, you're going to show up.
Yep.
And then you get used to it. And then it's just what you do every day. You wake up at 5:30 and go to the gym, boom, boom. And you don't even think about it, right? If you try and do it every now and again, much harder. Ritual formation. This is what children need. And this is what all of us need, frankly, but especially so with children, because children are kids and they're a bit silly and they get stuff wrong. And they need to know that it's predictable. So, like with divorced families, how they say that, well, they don't say, it is true that divorced families, the children will not do as well academically. When you look at the various studies that they do. The reason for that, biggest reason, obviously they want their mums and dads to be together. Obviously, it's lovely when you have a family and there are all kinds of reasons why families should stay together. But if you're split up, the best thing you can do for your child is have the same routines in both households because you need consistency. Yeah. The reason why everything falls apart for them is because dad says phones are all right. Mum says no to a phone. Dad says bath time at 7 o'clock. Mum says bath time at 9 o'clock. Dad says, we go to bed at midnight. Mum says, no, bedtime at 9 o'clock. Whatever it is. Yeah. The fact is, all of those differences are confusing for a child.
Muddles the brain.
They need the consistency. They need it to all be exactly the same. Yeah. So, and that's what a family together very much does in every possible way. You're all eating the same food. You're all watching the same program on TV. You're all reading the same bedtime story, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So tell me, why do you think the problem existed in the first place of education? Presumably the intentions were good, but why did it happen in the first place that there's such lower expectations of immigrant children, poor communities? Why is that?
Well, like I say, partly I do think it has to do with racism. I think they look at these brown and black kids and think, well, you obviously aren't that bright. You're not that good. You can't do this stuff. So partly I think of that. But I also think, because it happens with the white working classes in England as well, and I presume it will be happening here in America, I think these children are seen as other. These kids are different to us. They're not the same as us. And I always think kids are kids. It doesn't really matter what race they are, what class they are. It just doesn't matter. Kids are kids. So I think it's because we other them and we think of them as totally different from us when actually they are just the same as us. I think people don't realize how much is in our control. I mean, what I mean is we just sort of keep doing the same thing. Oh, well, I taught my last class like this, so I'll keep teaching that class like that. So often I'll speak to parents and they'll say, but my daughter wasn't behaving like my boy is, and I'm saying your boy is a nightmare. He's misbehaving, blah, blah. But my daughter wasn't like that. And I say, yes, but all children are not the same.
Right.
You got lucky with your daughter.
Exactly.
You brought her up without really thinking much about it. And actually, she's all right. She took care of herself. Well, lucky you. That is not the case with your boy.
Yeah.
You have got to do things differently with him. Otherwise, he's going to spin out of control. And that means you need to pull the fence in tighter. So I think people think you can just sort of be the same with all kids. You can't, you know? And some kids are naughtier. We know people. Some people are lazier than other people. Some people are more driven than others. People are
even
different.
within a family, siblings.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly.
So can you walk me through the core mechanics of the Michaela model? Knowledge first curriculum, choral response, no hands up, the strict discipline we've discussed, but just what is the bottom line on curriculum as it is taught at Michaela versus how it's taught at very progressive schools? Choral response, no hands up, what you do in the cafeteria, the gratitude.
Okay, there's two things that curriculum are really important for. One, you want kids, especially if they're kids from deprived backgrounds, you want them to be able to be taught the sorts of things that'll enable them to participate in life with the sorts of people you and I know. So if you don't know who Shakespeare is, then that's a bit of a problem. You're sitting at some dinner and somebody mentions Chairman Mao, and you think, who's that? You're out of your depth.
Yeah.
So we need to give them the knowledge that will allow them to be able to sit at those dinner tables and not come across as an idiot, right? So that's one side of things. Then there's the other side of things, which is that the curriculum should reflect the country and should bind children together under one flag. So what I mean by that, in Britain, we should be teaching British literature, for instance, and British history. And that should be important to us because our children are British. More and more, it's the case in Britain that we've moved away from that idea. And now we're teaching a whole variety of different things because we want to represent perhaps the global majority. And when they say that, what they mean is, we've got Black kids, therefore we need to teach an African writer, for instance. And then I think, well, a lot of those Black kids won't come from Africa. They could come from the Caribbean. They could come from any number of different places. But there's this, again, I just think this narrow-minded way of viewing race, which is just thinking that you need to represent children in the things that they study according to their race, which I just think is a bit backwards. I mean, why are you not able to learn from Shakespeare just because you're not white? I mean, we're also, not living in the Elizabethan era, but we can still try and learn from him. I mean, it's because we see things through the lens of identity politics and we then can't see people as people. We see them as a particular race. And then we think we need to adapt the curriculum according to their race. This is all wrong. If I think about Martin Luther King, your great heroes here in America for civil rights, they would just drop dead at the idea of this. I mean, the idea that we should be keeping all of these amazing authors from Black kids because they're Black. Well, that sounds very familiar, similar to the way in which we used to think about. You think about during slavery times. Well, what do? They kept all those wonderful books away from Black kids because they didn't want them to learn how to read.
Yep.
I mean,
it's bigotry.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And this is coming from the progressives. I mean, that's what we need to understand. And it's been my life's work trying to fight this idea.
Yeah.
And I'm fighting it by trying to persuade the progressives,
Okay, so that's the curriculum. And then the choral method.
Yes. Well, that's just a technique.
Okay.
So there's lots of different techniques that we have.
Yeah.
Choral response is all of the kids just shouting out the answer together because you've taught them so well. They're all able to go, right, German Mao. And then that's it, and then we move on.
Okay.
So there are different techniques that we use to improve the learning, the efficiency. That one, it's just about efficiency. You check for understanding right there. They're all there. Boom, they got it right. Boom.
And then tell me about the cafeteria the gratitude, because I love that.
Yes. So in fact, I mean, I know everybody would call it normally a cafeteria. We call it the dining hall because a cafeteria, but the reason is because in a cafeteria, you would go along with your tray and you would pick up your food and then you come and sit down. And then I tell you what happens in many inner city schools. And I mean, this is the case in America 100 times over. I've been inside those inner city schools here in America. You see it. They then throw food at each other. They might eat some. Some of them will take their trays and put them where they belong. Some of them will leave them. Well, the cleaners can get that. Who cares? We do what's called family lunch in the dining hall, where the children each have an assigned role. So child number one will will go and get the food. They're serving the food. They're pouring the water. They then have a topic for discussion for lunch. And it could be, if dinosaurs existed, which dinosaur would you want to hang out with most? Or whatever. It could be anything. And then they all eat their food while having that conversation. And that's because these soft skills we take for granted. To be able to cut your food and look at the person and chat and then put the food in your mouth and then chat again without making a mess of everything. Yeah. That's hard.
Or being on your phone while you're having a meal.
I mean, obviously there are no phones. Right. The kids don't have phones. Yeah. But I mean, all of that stuff requires practice, ritual formation. So they do that every single day. And at the end of lunch, they get up and they show their appreciation for somebody. So they'll get up and say, I'd like to give my appreciation to Mr. Smith for creating the new booklet that we've just been using today. On the count of 2, 1, 2. And then everybody claps like that. Like everybody goes, boom, boom. And then the next person stands up and they give an appreciation. And, any self-help book will tell you, write down things at the end of the day that you're grateful for. Absolutely. So that's just all that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, you're saying that's all they're doing, but that's not done in school. It's pretty trailblazing, let me say. So let me ask you, what, if any, resistance have you faced from parents or teachers or government or the press to your methodology?
Yeah, well, that's my whole life. It's like this big fight. So when we first tried to open, it took us 3.5 years. There were protests, people desperately trying to stop us, giving flyers to the kids to say that their lives were in danger in the building once we'd finally opened. When I'd try and have parent evenings in different parts of London where we tried to open, people would be standing outside handing out flyers to the parents to say, don't come to this school. I remember at one of them, it was so crazy. I mean, these people are crazy, very unionized, far leftists who hate everything that is at all good, frankly. And the Prime Minister, David Cameron, was a conservative. It was a Conservative Party in power at the time. And they were handing out flyers to the parents saying, the only reason this free school is going ahead is because she's friends with the Prime Minister. Now, I have to say, I was not friends with the Prime Minister. I did not know the Prime Minister. In fact, I met him maybe a year ago, David Cameron. I didn't know him until a year ago. And so they were saying this. But what was hilarious was that the parents would take it and go, well, she knows the Prime Minister. This is quite good. Because they don't understand normal people. Right. They're just so completely out of touch. Yeah. And these people in positions of power are ruining the life chances of kids, So we eventually opened up, and then, look, I mean, I just keep going. I keep shouting about the same things. People really don't like what I have to say about all of this stuff because they find it very conservative. So what does a normal teacher think? A normal teacher thinks to help children, you've just got to be kind to them, and you've got to understand their unmet needs. So when a child misbehaves, it's not because he's naughty, it's because he has an unmet need. So then what you need to do is find out what the unmet need is. He might be dyslexic or dyspraxic or ADHD, or he might not have a father in the home, or he might, I don't know, be upset because his grandmother died or whatever. So there are all these reasons why he can't behave. And they somehow connect that, just as I did when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw kids who really had troubles and they weren't misbehaving. And I realized, wait a minute, bad behavior doesn't come from having troubles in your life. You can be stoical. You can get through this. You don't have to tell your teacher to F off because something's happened at home. Like, that's crazy.
But where do you draw the line between respecting a child's background and real, learning differences and that being used as an excuse?
So you don't want to ask kids to do things they can't do, right? I understand that. But you'd be amazed at what kids can do. You'd be amazed. We've had 2 autistic kids recently. They've just finished now. They don't know each other. I mean, they know each other because they're in the same school, but they're not connected. They're so autistic that they jump up and down in one spot in the yard. They're fine. In fact, they excel at our school. When the inspectorate has come to see our school, they say our special needs kids, they outperform the way in which special needs kids do elsewhere. To the point where you don't even feel like they have a special need, right? And that's because I don't tell my staff who's got a special need and who hasn't. So this is advice for all of the parents who are listening. If you're going around saying, my kid has this label, my kid has that label, I would say to all of the parents, stop doing that. Because all you're doing is lowering the expectations for your child. All you're doing is saying to the teachers, my kid can't do that, so don't expect them to do it. Well, then they'll stop expecting your kid to do that. And then what happens to your kid? Your kid never learns how to read. Your kid never learns how to do algebra. Like, it's crazy. You'd be amazed at the resolve within children and the ability to be resilient and how they'll get over whatever obstacles there are in front of them. It's the same when it comes to race or religion or any obstacles that might exist in life. You've got to, as the parent or as the teacher, to see this as well, how am I going to enable you to jump over that obstacle? Right. Now, obviously, if it's impossible for them to do it, you can't ask them, but that's the difficulty. And I'm not saying it's not difficult to figure it out. Where is that line? It's much easier when it's a physical disability. So if they can't climb up, we've got 6 flights of stairs, right? There's a kid in a wheelchair. I'm not asking him to climb up the stairs every day. He takes the lift, right? I get it. But there are other kids who will say, I've hurt my leg. Something's happened. And we're making the judgment. Wait a minute. Is this okay? You're using it for 3 weeks, but no more. We're making a judgment because we as human beings are naturally lazy. That's what happens. And if somebody in a position of authority to us decides to allow us off, it's okay. You don't do your homework tonight, darling, because I know dad's not at home. Or it's okay, darling. You just take the lift every day for the next 5 years because I know you hurt your leg when you were 11 and now when you're 16, it doesn't matter. Well, he's never going to learn to climb the stairs.
Disempowering completely.
Exactly.
So critics call your approach authoritarian, insufficiently accommodating of cultural and religious differences, including your prayer ban, which I understand went to the High Court. What was that about and how did you answer that?
Yeah. So while the vast majority of our children get it and the families get it and they understand that it's only decent and respectful to follow the rules of the school, this one mom decided that she was not respectful and she was going to get what she wanted, right? And so she took us to court.
Because what?
Well, she wanted prayer at the school. I mean, she actually started off with she wanted prayer in the middle of the day, and she wanted us to change our timetable to accommodate the prayer at the exact time that it should be. I mean, it was crazy. She backed off on that request, but I just don't understand how you can be so arrogant and convinced that all that matters is you, that you would actually change everything in a school. You see, not only are you taking everything that we're giving you anyway, because we're an amazing school, right?
Yeah.
And you are bloody lucky to go to our school, but you're going to demand even more. Like, where is the respect and where is the gratitude and where is the decency on how you behave? Now, I have to say, yes, that one Muslim mom did that. I have to say the other Muslim parents didn't behave like that. I had one Muslim dad who was furious, wanted to come in and give assembly saying this is completely outrageous that this woman is doing this because he's respectful, Right. And that really is the difference is, are you respectful or not? She doesn't know me. Like, if she'd won, well, the school would have closed. There's no way that was going to happen under my watch.
Right.
No way.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, all my staff would have marched out with me. We would have refused to teach. That's what would have happened, right?
So do you believe that religion has no place in school?
No, it's not so much that. So we have a RE religion class that they take and we teach them all the religions. I mean, the big 3 Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are the three that we do inside out, and they know them really well. Obviously, our Muslim girls, look, the school is 60% Muslim. And in fact, what's interesting is that since the prayer ban, I used to have 30% Muslim kids. I now have 60% Muslim kids. Huh. So it's clear that lots of Muslim families, they're happy.
Yeah.
And the reason they're happy is because they weigh it up and they say, well, the school is offering this. I would prefer to have prayer, but you know what? I'll deal with it. Mm-hmm. We'll catch up the prayer at the end of the day and we'll be okay. We're not so full of ourselves that we're going to demand this, and they don't. They're happy with it. But it's the same with the Jehovah's Witnesses. So the Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't want prayer, but they want no Macbeth. So we teach our Shakespeare GCSE. So when they're 16, the exam and Shakespeare play that we do is Macbeth. They read other Shakespeare plays, but the one that they can't get out of because it's their big exams at age 16 is Macbeth. And there are witches in Macbeth. Jehovah's Witnesses don't like that. They also don't like A Christmas Carol. We also do that at GCSE because they're ghosts, right? But they put up with it, right? Mm-hmm. The fact is that the Hindus, they've complained. Well, with our family lunch, they all have to share the same plates. The eggs and the onions have touched the plates. They don't like it. They don't like carrying the fish dish and various things. They put up with it. And the fact is, everybody's having to put up with something. And either you put the school and the whole of what it is, the whole community above your own desires, or you say, no, what matters is what I want.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you see this the case in marriages, for instance. Marriages that break down, it's because one or both partners are saying what matters is what I want. Mm-hmm. You got to step to my tune. I'm not sacrificing anything for you, right?
Yeah.
The only way people can get on with each other, even within just two people, let alone hundreds of people in a school, let alone millions of people in a country, right? The only way we can get along with each other is if we sacrifice what's important to ourselves and think about the betterment of the whole. Mm-hmm. And that is what I'm requiring from each and every child and each and every parent at Michaela. And the ones who come are willing to do that.
When you have immigrant children that come in, do you have some children that don't speak English?
Yes, very few, but there are a few.
What's the reluctance for shared language and like immigrant communities causing offense if I demand that you speak the language of the country? I mean, do you believe that in an attempt to be culturally sensitive, you're just entrenching poverty and opportunity instead of easing it by just letting the person do what it is that they did in their native country?
Yeah.
What do you think is the bigger issue at play with that?
Well, to be frank, I think it's white people who are just really guilty, feeling really awkward about getting kids to speak English. I mean, It's just, again, it's like this awkwardness around race. It's crazy. Obviously, the kids need to learn to speak English. I mean, how else are they going to survive? Look, I can understand also, because it's not just that it's white guilt. It's also that, the kid isn't speaking any English. And then they think, oh, but we've got a Spanish speaker here. They could just speak in Spanish to them and make it much easier. And they're thinking short term.
Right.
I think that's often the case with lots of things. Everybody's just thinking, how do we get through the day?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
As opposed to, no, but wait a minute, what happens to them when they're 25?
Exactly. Yep. I wanted to ask you, if every school serving mixed or immigrant communities, as Michaela is, adopted the Michaela model, what do you think would change at a societal level in 10 years, say?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I mean, it's transformational. Oh, that's my goal. But, I just want to spread the word as much as I can. Because, oh my goodness, if every school was like a Michaela school, I mean, I can't even imagine. First of all, everybody be able to read and write and be numerate. Everybody would be able to be the best version of themselves, where they've learned how to sit on a chair and sit up straight and talk. Like we take for granted, you and I, we're looking at each other, we're smiling. I'm speaking and you're going, and you're smiling at the same time. That is a skill. Okay.
Yeah.
But we don't realize what behavior is like in impoverished areas in the schools. I feel for these teachers, I'm not even saying it's the teacher's fault because yes, I mean, the teachers are progressive, but they're only representing what the public think.
Right.
Right. They're just They're just members of the public
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
And they're too scared to stand up and do it differently for fear of being called racist, bigot, anything like that.
Well, and plus they sort of think, well, it must be racist because everybody says it's racist.
Exactly.
So how are they meant to know any differently?
Exactly.
Right? It's just not wanting to be racist, but they don't want to be mean. They don't want to be accused of hating children in the way that I'm accused all the time. You know, you've got to be a pretty tough cookie to take that kind of hate that comes your way. You know?
Do you think to that point with the Michaela curriculum and how it could benefit society at large, do you think European institutions, let's call England specifically, that they're reluctant to name extreme behavior, extreme ideologies out of fear of being labeled Islamophobic or what is that?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, well, look, I went through it myself. When you get death threats, you know, you're looking over your shoulder all the time. I had to have security at some point. It is terrifying.
But by the way, doesn't the fact that you're getting death threats sort of prove your point that some ideologies are dangerous?
Yes, but from a progressive's point of view, they're just thinking to themselves, because what they hear is, so one little Muslim girl wanted to pray. Why don't you just let her pray in a room? It's not a big deal. What they don't understand is, I've got 60% Muslims and 40% not Muslims. And because of our lunches and the way we do things, I would have to divide the kids according to race, right? Or according to religion, I should say. I would have to say, okay, all the Muslim kids, you go upstairs now, and all the non-Muslim kids, you go downstairs. Not only that, but there's a pressure that various Muslim kids feel from the more pious Muslims who then say, well, why aren't you praying? Why haven't you covered your head? Why are you not fasting during Ramadan? And I have to protect those kids too.
Yeah.
Like, because there are Muslim kids who don't want to cover their heads.
Right.
There are Muslim kids who don't want to fast during Ramadan.
Yeah.
Right. So it's my job to look after everybody.
Yeah.
And the problem is the progressive only hears the demand from the more extreme. When I say more extreme, look, there are very pious Muslims who want to pray. I'm not saying they're extremists, but they're just more pious. Let me say it that way.
Okay.
That's all the progressive hears.
Yeah.
And the progressive, because they're so guilty and white, they're desperate to do somersaults for any minority that is asking anything. So if the minority says, I'm a Rastafarian, I need to wear my hair in this way. I'm a Jehovah's Witness, I need to be able to not read Macbeth. They go, oh, okay. I'll change it. I'll do whatever you want. That is particularly the case for Islam. And it's particularly the case for Islam because like the Jehovah's Witnesses, they're not as loud about it. They're not marching around saying, Macbeth is evil. You know, they're not doing that. So nobody kind of knows, you know? Whereas we all know that there are issues with the Islamic situation, you know, that there are Muslims in the street demanding to pray and that kind of thing, which 20 years ago they were never asking for. Like, that didn't happen.
Yeah. So this idea of progressives really wanting to like silo identity, it just really hurts society in the long run because at the end of the day, we're all here. No one's going anywhere. We need to figure out how to all coexist.
That's right. And that's really key. Because what is unfortunate then, we have a whole ethno-nationalist movement, for instance, in Britain, which are white people who are sort of fed up with this whole situation and are then saying the problem is that we have immigrants at all. You know, they're saying any brown or black person, they are a problem, as opposed to no, mass migration is a problem. And also it's the fact that the country doesn't have a backbone. Yeah. Because actually, once you have a backbone, what happens? All the immigrants go, okay, fine, we'll follow your rules. Like, they don't mind.
And by the way, the backbone starts, in my opinion, with education.
Yes.
Right? With the children, right? The next generation.
Exactly.
And then the parents who learn from the children, oh, that's how they do it in this country. And if we want to succeed and thrive, we need to not just have the rights, but also have the responsibilities.
Yes.
So Michaela posted the highest progress 8 score in England for 3 years straight in a school where most children qualify for free meals. Can you just tell me what these numbers mean to Americans?
There are nearly 4,000 secondary schools in Britain. Their results are tracked from the progress they make from when they're 11 all the way to when they're 16. They take exams before they arrive at secondary school, and then they take exams again at the end of the 16, the GCSEs that I mentioned before. And then that's tracked to see how the kids are doing. And our kids do very, very well. You know, we've been at the top. And the fact is, you know what? They do very well. And if you come and visit the school, it's obvious. that, of course, they're going to do really well because their behavior is off the charts in terms of being lovely. They work hard. We get the teaching right. The quality of the teaching is unbelievable. My staff are brilliant, So, of course, they do well. But the thing I'm most proud of, and I always say this, is who the children are as people. Who they are as people is what matters most. And what people never understand is that schools help to shape who your child is going to be. And you will have people who will listen to you, who will be thinking, yeah, my child, before he went to that school, he was like this. And then he changed. That's because the adults in your child's life are going to change who your child is, And people don't realize this, and they don't choose their schools carefully enough.
Mm-hmm.
They often just, especially if they're sort of middle class people, they're well off, and then they choose the school according to just results. So they'll say, well, that school's got great results, got great teaching, we'll send him there. And then next thing you know, your child is saying, oh, I'd like to change gender. And you're thinking, well, why is this? Well, because you sent him to that school, right?
Mm.
And these ideas come from somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your child becomes some, radical who's going off on various marches all the time and so on. And you're thinking, wait a minute, why is my child doing that? Because you sent him to that school.
Yeah.
And so parents need to be considering very carefully, not just the academic results. Frankly, that is less important. What's more important is, who is your child going to be at the end of his secondary education?
Yeah, for sure. So we're seeing a generation of Western protesters adopt the oppressor-oppressed framework that leads to defend groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, the IRGC, and they see them as like freedom fighters.
Yes.
And then they stay silent on 40,000 true freedom fighters over the course of 72 hours being slaughtered by the IRGC. What, in your most generous explanation, is going on?
Well, it's because they see everything through that lens of oppressor and oppressed. So they're very patronizing towards brown people and black people. Hamas is brown. Therefore, they are being oppressed. Now, whatever the ins and outs are over Israel and so on, but the fact is, they cannot see brown people as anything other than oppressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even if the brown person is murdering people, it must be that it's because they're oppressed. That's the only way that they can see things.
Yeah.
It's the same with the way in which they would judge, a black kid murdering somebody in a shop to steal something from them. They would say, but he's oppressed. They can't see it in any other way. So because all of these people are oppressed, then who's the oppressor? Well, the white people.
Yeah.
And Jews are white. Israelis are white. Therefore,
which is so ironic because there's
I know.
So
I've
not.
had
There's so many brown Jews.
No, indeed. But they don't see them.
Yeah.
And they just see the Jews that they see in America and so on. And, the Jewish community tends to be quite successful financially and so on.
Yeah.
So they might drive a big car or a big house or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they look at that and they go, well, he's obviously an oppressor.
Yep.
And they literally can't get out of that paradigm, that way of thinking.
Yeah.
Which, look, the thing is, I'm not saying there isn't such a thing as oppressed peoples, and I'm not saying that. But how do you stop being oppressed? Right? So even if we accept that paradigm of oppressor-oppressed, let's accept it.
Yeah.
Let's accept that all of my kids at school are oppressed. So what do we do about it? What do we do about it? That's what we need to be asking.
Yes.
How do we make it so that we liberate them from their oppression?
Yes.
Well, I can tell you what you don't do. You don't encourage them to go and join protests and waste their time just complaining all the time and seeing the world as being against them. Because as soon as you see the world as against you, you give up as a kid. I tell you what you do. You give them the knowledge and the skills they need to be able to make something of their lives. And the thing is, our kids will go off and do a variety of things. Some of them will become dentists and some of them will become radicals, And when I say radicals, they'll become some professor and then write academic studies about oppressor-oppressed narratives, right? Fine. There'll be others who become dentists and accountants. There'll be others who become teachers and lawyers and doctors and so on. The fact is, I've given them the basics that they need to be able to then go off and make their own decisions and be who they want to be, genuinely be who they want to be. The problem nowadays is that we as teachers, and everyone actually, we see it as our role to liberate them from their oppression psychologically. So that means teaching them to reject the establishment, to reject Shakespeare, to reject algebra, right? That stuff is the stuff that's binding you and putting the fence around you. Whereas if you really want to be true to yourself and be who you want to be, that means rejecting all of the stuff that your grandparents would have learned. But if you genuinely want kids to be who they want to be, you need to give them a basic grounding in math, English, science, a language, history of their country, so they can feel like they belong to their country. If you don't feel like you belong to your country, you'll always be miserable. I'm not saying you can't be critical. Look, all I'm doing is being critical of everything we're doing in the West, right? So obviously I'm critical, right? But I love Britain. My heart belongs to Britain. I am British, you know? The fact of the matter is that if you don't feel like you belong in Britain, then all you're ever going to do is complain and be miserable, and you'll never be able to do anything with your life.
Thanks for listening. For more, you can visit Instagram at Grace for Impact Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please follow the show, leave a rating and review. See you next time.